So, I have been in business, and it's scary to say it, but really over the last 2 decades, more than that time, simultaneously I've also raised 4 sons, and I've got 3 grandsons as well. So I'm into the big family story as well. And I totally agree with you, Agnes. We run the world, actually, in a beautiful way. And it's not that our boys and our men aren't part of it, but actually we are extraordinarily powerful as women. And I think that's not to be taken lightly, and it's not to be abused, but it's to be treasured, and we are to use it wisely. I digress. Anyway, I have spent, as I said, the last about 25 years working in business. I've worked with comparative startups. I have worked with really established businesses, and I've actually just spent the last 2.5 years in Sydney working with a really iconic Australian brand over there that was in need of resurrection, to say the least. I think the interesting thing is that every single brand and business you see out in the marketplace right now was the brainchild of someone at some point, from the smallest little takeaway bar to a massive corporate. Someone at that point, at some point, invented that thing or had that idea, and they grew it and turned it into what we see around us today. All of these people, and you are included, that start businesses and grow them are special. These are people who have poured themselves and their lives into their ideas and into their companies. They're the ones that have taken the risks. They've had the sleepless nights, they've solved the problems, they've employed the staff, and actually we know this for a fact, very, very often they pay themselves way less than the staff they actually employ. And many of you are on a journey to become them, or you're already on that journey. You will, of course, have heard the stats around how many businesses fail early on, and I think Bloomberg says that 80% will fail in the first 18 months. Whatever the statistics you read, and they do vary, none of them make for pretty reading. But I do think that there are some things that we can do that make us less likely to be a casualty, and over the years, I think there's been some really pertinent things that I'd love to just share with you, and you can pick up on if you like. I wanted to share them. I called it, it's not the 7 deadly sins, it's the 7 potential pitfalls. So pitfall number 1 is not knowing your USP. Does everybody know what a USP is? It is your unique selling proposition. It doesn't matter what your product or your service is, it will rarely be absolutely brand new. It's more likely to be a move on or an improvement. And of course, we always think that our idea is going to take the world by storm. That's why we're here. It's our dream. We believe in it. We think we can do something better than what's currently available. But I guess the most critical thing that we need to know about our product is what differentiates it. Why are you any different from what else is out there? Can you explain it simply and easily? And if you can't, you won't be able to market it, and no one else will be able to talk about it. Your USP has got to be obvious. And if it's not, you just need to go away and do some work on it. Pitfall number 1. Pitfall number 2, not having a plan. And this has been touched on a little bit tonight. An idea is one thing, and a plan is a completely different thing. You will have heard the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But the conundrum is, isn't it, for ideas people, that very often we're not details people. The two things are sometimes a bit of a contradiction. In this game, you have to be both. And if you're not both, then get someone around you that has that other piece of the puzzle for you. An idea isn't enough. You really have to have some discipline to work out a plan. You start with the goals, which need to be measurable, and they need to have deadlines. And then you have got to add in the detail that proves that you know how to get to those goals. That is the point of the detail. You need to understand the what, and you need to understand the how. Here's some of them. What will it cost? How much capital do you need? How will you fund it? How will you make it? How will you deliver it? How will you market it? How will you sell it? What resources do you need? What might go wrong? What are your contingencies if things do go wrong? These are the kinds of questions that lead you to a plan that is going to be robust. You need to work through the plan, right through the critical path of whatever your product or your service or your idea is, from the start to the end. You're still going to have surprises, but you need to do that thorough process all the way along. It needs to be focused, it needs to be logical, it needs to be realistic, and it needs to be robust. In the areas that you don't know about, get some expert advice. If you're doing some manufacturing, for example, you may not know about shipping, you may not know about compliance, you may not know about insurance. Ask people. Generally speaking, people are amazing and more than happy to share their expertise, so don't be shy. Your plan becomes the guide to keep you on the right track. It's a filter as well for your decision making too, so if something comes at you, you actually can put it through that plan and go, you know what, I don't actually need to think about that, or you can add it back in, but it's a good filter. It brings strength and it keeps you focused. It's like the spine in your body, it just keeps everything upright. So that's pitfall number 2 if you don't have a plan. Pitfall number 3, not starting lean and staying lean. You know when you've got yourself really, really fit and feeling like, I'm looking pretty good at the moment, and then Christmas comes, and then Easter comes, and then it's not looking so good anymore. The effort to go back to getting into a state again where you're fit again is way harder than it would have been if you'd just maintained it. It is exactly the same thing with a business. Excuse my croaky voice. You have to start the way you mean to go on, because when times get tough, it's actually too late to change it at that point. So, as part of your plan, start lean and stay lean. Set your standards and don't compromise. Create process and good working habits and don't waste your time and don't waste your resources. Put disciplines in place that allow you to measure yourself, and then be blimmin' ruthless about holding yourself to account. And you do the same for your product too. Don't make excuses for it, and take action if you need to take action. That's how you're going to build something. I know it sounds pedantic, but it's really worth it. Right, that's a bit better. Pitfall number 4, and I think this one is actually critical. It doesn't matter whether you're a startup or whether you're in business. If you don't know your customer, I'll say it pretty bluntly, you don't deserve to be in business, truly. Business for me is about people first, product second, process third, profit will come. In that order, it's always about people. If you don't know who that customer is, you can't serve them. And I would go as far as to say, if you don't care about the customer or the public or your client or whatever realm you're in, you shouldn't be there. We are there to serve, actually, truly serve. So, don't ever assume that you know who your customer is, because that's a little bit arrogant. But be really proactive and disciplined in finding out about them and building up a picture of who they are. What do they care about? What do they do during the day? How old are they? What's the right price for something for them? How much can they afford to pay? Do you know their average salary? Some of this stuff is actually available through census, through all sorts of stats. You can get them and you can go, wow, that piece of my market actually only earns this amount a year. It's really, really powerful stuff. Are they a bargain hunter, or do they like to be ahead of the pack? All of that sort of thing, get into their headspace. You actually need to engage with people to do this too. Yes, you can look at the stats, but you actually need to go and talk to some people. You can't just be academic about it. You can go, take a clipboard to a mall and stop and ask people. Be brave. This is your dream. You're the one that's going to make it happen. And seriously, don't just ask your family, because they're going to say it's fabulous, whatever it is. Then I would advise you, when you've got that information, don't just store it in your head. It's actually really helpful if you get a board or something on your computer and you whack up detailed profiles. In the businesses that I've been in, actually without exception, we would profile, say, it might be 4 customers for each brand, because of the different behaviours. They got a name, they got a whole package around them about what they were all about. And it actually becomes really powerful, because you are thinking as you are creating, and I was in apparel and footwear and all of that overarchingly. It made a difference to how you served them, because you were thinking about, what are they going to think, what are they going to feel when they see this? So, all products actually are about solving a problem, broadly speaking. They're solving a problem. What am I going to wear to this? how am I going to get my kid from A to B? If you really boil it down, we are there to solve problems, whether it's a service industry or whether it's actually a product. So when you know your customer, you can start to actually answer the problems that they've got. Pitfall number 5, not knowing your competition. Very well to know your customer, but if you don't know your competition, whatever your product is, the reality is there's going to be competition in the marketplace. Classic example of this is the plethora of businesses that start in kidswear. Young mums at home who decide they don't like the offering that's in the marketplace and they're going to start a kidswear brand. And you will have known them, and they last, some of them go on and on and on, and that's amazing. In fact, Pumpkin Patch was a case in point, really, that happened, and that went very well for many, many years, and I was part of it for very many years. Others, most of them in fact, unfortunately, are a flash in the pan. That's the sad reality. Apart from the fact that they might have fallen into some of those previous pitfalls, like not having a real USP, what really made them different, or simply assuming that their customer was like them. The other real pitfall is that they hadn't done their homework around the competition. Who else is in the market and what is that offering like? What are they selling, at what price? What channels are they using? What's their buying power of their product likely to be? What are they actually really, really good at? And then the killer question, and is your USP good enough to compete? So your mission actually, in whatever area you're in, is to thoroughly research your competition and your competitors. Do a SWOT analysis on them. Plot them out. If there's 20 within this doing the same thing that you're going to be doing or a similar thing, plot them out. Where do they sit on the cost versus quality? Where do they sit on the speed versus whatever it might be? But do a SWOT analysis and then really see, where do I fit in this market? And then you can frame up a little bit more about what your business is about. And this isn't a one-off, by the way. When you're in business, you should always be in and out of what the market is doing. You should know what your competitors are doing, because 100% they're watching you too. Once you're big enough, they're absolutely in your stores looking at you. What are you doing? If you're in a store or in your space or on your website. So that's number 5. Number 6, don't have unrealistic expectations. We think, oh, well, actually, no, maybe we don't. But business is about enjoyment. It's also about confusion. It's exhaustion. It's terrifying. It's exhilarating. It's basically a white-knuckle ride. But it is always about solving problems. And I said that about the product, but I'm talking now actually about the business. Day after day, business is just about solving problems that come in different packages. Your job is how to solve the problem of how you're going to get that product from supply into your customer's hand. The plan's absolutely vital so that you can consider the variables. But actually, business by its very nature is unpredictable. So if your expectation is that things are going to run smoothly, I can tell you right now, and you will know this if you've started for 5 minutes, it just doesn't go that way. But seeing problems as negative is going to demotivate you, and it will slow you down, and it may even derail you. Actually, what we have to do is reframe the hassle, the curveballs and the issues, and choose to see them as challenges and opportunities that force us to think and use our ingenuity. The bonus is when we actually do solve that stuff, we're left with absolutely brilliant understanding, experience, confidence and resilience that you can't get any other way than if you had not gone through that. I think too, the confidence when you have worked something out and actually nailed it needs to come with a humility that says there is always something more to be learnt here. And it also rises that courage inside us to make us go, actually, I'll take it on again when it hits us. So, expect and embrace the challenge. And then pitfall number 7, is compromising what you stand for. And that is a huge pitfall. When you're starting out and the pressure's on, there's temptations to take shortcuts, or there's temptations to cut costs or take some of the quality out. There's a temptation to excuse yourself if you fall short of what you've committed to others, but also to yourself and to your plan. There's a temptation often to partner with people or employ people for the sake of expediency, rather than ones that truly share your values. It's really, really easy to lose the essence of what you are setting out to build and achieve. And I guess I'm going to make a real assumption, and I believe it genuinely, that we're actually all here for more than just making money. Actually, business is about more than making money. And as I said, if you could do that people, product, process, and then the profit, that kind of frames it up. But it is really important to not fall into this trap of sacrificing your values. Don't compromise your vision. Your product and your brand should reflect the values that you hold dear, and your plan should show the pathway to accomplish what you've determined to do. You actually don't get second chances most of the time to re-establish your brand or your product in the mind of a customer. You know yourself, you go to a new cafe down the road and the food's rubbish, you don't go there again. There ain't no second chances. And actually, if you're going to do this, do it well, hold it tight, preserve it, treasure it. I think the other piece of that puzzle is that we know, and all the research is saying this, that customers more and more and consumers internationally are choosing to spend their money with brands and companies that have values that align to their own. Yeah. So the years of just purely transactional, fast, uncaring business are falling away really, really rapidly, and that's a great thing. But customers want to know your story. They want to know what you stand for. Your USP should also showcase that off as well. So don't dilute what sets you apart. So there, 10 minutes, 7 potential pitfalls that you can avoid when you apply focus and discipline. Know your USP, create a plan, start lean, stay lean, know your customer, know your competition, make sure your expectations are realistic, and don't compromise.